Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a very powerful core-breaking moveset in the Open Master League, and that is Dragon Tail on GROUDON. Currently there are a lot of teams in the Open Master League, my own legend team included, that solely rely on Rayquaza to be the team's GROUDON counter. So with Dragon Tail, that allows GROUDON to now be able to beat Rayquaza, and you still retain the Fire Punch and the Precipice Blades to inflict massive damage on whatever Steel type or Rhyperior people are pairing with it. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's check out Dragon Tail GROUDON in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, leading GROUDON into Solgaleo. Opponent is going to save switch into Rayquaza, and they are core broken by the Dragon Tail GROUDON. I throw 4 Dragon Tails, switch into the Xerneas to catch their charge move, and now I can massively overfarm, as it takes them a very long time to get to Dragon Ascent. They don't even bother building up to it, they're just going to end up firing off the Breaking Swipe. So I'm now double debuffed here. I'm going to go for an undercharge. I was hoping this was enough of an undercharge considering I'm double debuffed, but that's still going to be able to KO. Back in comes Solgaleo, and I'm just going to spam out these close combats. These are double debuffed. These are going to do absolutely nothing to Solgaleo, but the important thing is I'm just getting chip damage here. I'm continuing to chip away at Solgaleo's health, and they're going to have to throw a charge move to KO me here. There, I tried to go for the close combat. A bit of a frame drop there forces an overtap. I would have lost CMP anyway though, and now I can just send in Giratina, and Giratina does extremely well into Solgaleo, and I still have the Groudon in case they have another dragon in the back. I continue to farm in the back. It's a Ho-Oh, and the opponent concedes the match. We see a tough lead in the next match, Groudon into Ho-Oh. This team is pretty soft to a Ho-Oh lead. That's where having Dragon Tail can help. Dragon Tail hits for neutral. I'm going to farm up, wait, switch into the Giratina, and catch the Sacred Fire. This way I save a bunch of energy on my Groudon while wasting their energy. They're going to rebank a move. They send in Dialga, but they have given my Giratina a pretty sizable energy lead here. Shadow Ball is going to connect, and if I make it to a second Shadow Ball, this is going to KO unless my opponent is going to commit a shield here. So I am going to fire off the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will be shielded, and they get the farm down. I believe they are slightly short of a Draco, so I can just come in here and go for the Fire Punch. They throw right away, that's perfectly fine. It is only going to be the Iron Head, so I'm able to withstand that damage, go for the Fire Punch here, and now I'm just going to get a Dragon Tail farm down. They did leave with energy on the Ho-Oh, which is a bit unfortunate. Back in comes the Ho-Oh, but the fact that they're sending in the Ho-Oh is good for me. That way it's not going up against the Xerneas. I'm committing the shield, they're going for the Brave Bird, and I'm farming up and going for the Fire Punch here. Fire Punch is of course going to be heavily resisted, but they're debuffed. They commit the shield, and in the back they have their own Xerneas, and we have the Battle of the Deer. They're going to strike first, going for the Moonblast. Moonblast is going to connect, and I'm returning fire with a Moonblast of my own. As we know, this will not kill, but it will do quite a lot of damage, and now I'm looking to potentially make it to a close combat, but they throw before I'm able to get there. I'm going to commit the shield here. Opponent goes for the close combat, and that's actually massive, as now I can very comfortably fire back close combats of my own. Close combat will get the KO. They're going to send in Ho-Oh, and Ho-Oh will be met with the close combat here. Xerneas is a Ho-Oh counter confirmed, and that's a good game. We see a great lead in the next match, Groudon into Giratina. Opponent save switches into Togekiss, and I'm going to respond with Xerneas. I'm honestly very surprised to see Togekiss here. Togekiss has near no Master League value because the Pokemon are just too tanky to charm through. As you're going to see, any matchup Togekiss is in that's neutral, they're going to have to go down shields if they want to win it. They land the Ancient Power, so they throw their energy, and Xern is still going to make another Moonblast here. They can really double shield if they want to, but that's going to put them at a massive disadvantage for the rest of the game. I can now send in Giratina. These charms, of course, are hitting for super effective damage, but I already know Ancient Power is not going to do a lot, so I can let that through. I continue to farm. Opponent is going to send in their own Giratina. I'm going to stay in here and fire off the Shadow Ball. I can one shield farm down and leave with a Shadow Ball loaded, and that way I will have some energy for that Togekiss later in the game. They go for the Ominous Wind. They're hoping for the boost, but the boost does not happen. I get the farm down. They're going to wait their clock here, but they're still going to be switch locked, and I am not going to be. So let's see. Their final Pokemon is Excadrill, and I can send in the Groudon. They're firing off the Drill Run here, hoping that it's going to burn the switch clock, but their switch clock is still not yet up. I watch for the switch. It's not able to happen. Precipice Blades will deal massive damage to the Excadrill, and the opponent concedes the match. We see a great lead in the next match, Groudon into Rhyperior. This is a very nice spot to be in, and the opponent is staying in this matchup, which is quite surprising. They've got to be pretty weak to Dragon Tail Groudon in the back, so I'm going to build up to the Precipice Blades and bait with the Fire Punch. Since they're core broken here, I'm expecting they'll shield, and they do. Honestly, the rest of my team isn't bad into Rhyperior, so the plan is I'm just going to save the Groudon for later, since they're clearly weak to it, and I'm going to send in Xerneas. This is enough for a Rock Wrecker. Rock Wrecker does do a lot of damage. I am going to let that through, and they're staying in. I'm farming up to the back-to-back close combats and waiting a turn to make sure they do not get a catch. Close combat into Rhyperior will be shielded. Again, they do not catch, so I get the second close combat. The opponent has run out of shields, and Rhyperior gets KO'd. In comes Dialga, and now we see why they did not want to switch, as they have a Dialga in the back. I'm farming up, opponent sends in Kyogre looking for the snipe, but I'm barely able to save the Groudon with the Precipice Blades loaded, and now in comes Giratina. I'm firing off the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will hit for very nice neutral damage, and my play here is just to shield and farm down. My opponent is going to bait with the Surf. That's a bit unfortunate for me. I'm looking for the farm down. Are they going to make it to the Blizzard? Yes, they do. Opponent gets the new mechanic. They make the Blizzard, and I'm going to commit the final shield. But now the opponent is really in an unwinnable position, as I have way too much energy on the Giratina and a Precipice Blades loaded on my Groudon. Opponent just, there's just way too much energy here for them to do anything about it, and Giratina will secure the victory. Moving into the next match, oh my goodness, Dragon Tail Groudon into Heatran. Opponent save switches into Palkia, and look at the Dragon Tails go. I'm going to throw 4 Dragon Tails, and then I'm going to switch into Xerneas. Aqua Tail, of course, would hit the Groudon for super effective damage, so I can just deal massive chip damage and then send in the Xern, and I should be in a very nice position here. I'm firing off the Moonblast. Moonblast is going to easily get the KO with the Palkia, and back in comes the Heatran. Heatran does win CMP over Xerneas because my Xerneas is not best buddied. They're going to be firing off the Magma Storm here. I think I can make it to the back-to-back close combats, but I cannot. I got too greedy, and I lose so much energy. But in the back, it's Rayquaza, so the opponent is triple weak to Dragon Tail Groudon. I made a pretty big mistake losing all that energy, but I still should actually be okay here, as these Dragon Tails are just shredding through the Rayquaza. Rayquaza goes for the Breaking Swipe. That is going to force the shield. I continue to farm. This Fire Punch will not KO, but it is going to do a solid amount of damage to the Rayquaza, and at this point, I can just let this go. I can farm down with the Giratina, and as someone who's run a lot of Heatran, Heatran just does not enjoy Giratina Origin whatsoever, and the opponent concedes a match. We see a positive lead in the next match, Groudon into Dialga. Even with Dragon Tail, Groudon is still able to win the 2 shield here, just going straight Fire Punch. I will always want to build up to the Precipice Blades to threaten the potential one-shot, but more often than not, I'll just be going for the Fire Punch here. Opponent commits the shield, they're firing back with the Iron Head, and I of course am going to commit the shield here. Opponent is going to save switch into their own Xerneas, and I'm going to respond with mine. I bank up Precipice Blades for later, and honestly, I'm not too upset about being down energy in this mirror. They go for the Moonblast, I'm farming up, and I'm going for a Moonblast of my own. Again, won't kill, but it does a lot of damage. Moonblast is able to connect. Neither one of us were able to get the attack debuff. I'm farming up, and they let me get to the close combat. That is incredibly nice, and close combat will get the KO. What are they going to send in here? They don't really want to send in a Dialga, so they're going to send in a Mewtwo. And this has suddenly gotten bad, as Mewtwo up energy is incredibly deadly. I go for the Moonblast, they let this through, aggressive switch into the Giratina just to force them to throw some energy. Giratina will be hit with a Psy Strike from the Mewtwo, in comes the Dialga. Dialga continuing to farm, I'm able to make it to the Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball is going to be getting the shield from the Dialga. Dialga is going to leave with quite a lot of energy, and I'm going to send in the Groudon. I do lose the CMP tie here, which is a bit unfortunate, but I need to get rid of the Dialga. So I will commit the shield and go for the Fire Punch here. Fire Punch, I'm full charging it, and that is going to get the KO, but in hindsight, maybe I should have gone for an undercharge because I needed a move. They get the KO with the Psy Strike. In comes the Xerneas, but the Xerneas is too low, and we lose a heartbreaking game. Moving into the next match, leading Groudon into Zacian. This is a matchup that is hurt by running Dragon Tail, which is a bit unfortunate. Opponent goes for the close combat on alignment, which is definitely a surprise. Close combat will deal some solid damage. They're staying in, probably looking to catch, and they do as they send in Yveltal. I hold on to the energy, but then I immediately make a misplay by going for the Fire Punch. The Fire Punch accomplishes nothing in this game. What I should have done was just hold on to the energy and send in the Xerneas. Whereas now, I have wasted some energy on the Groudon, and they have a pretty big energy lead on Yveltal, and they're running Oblivion Wing. Oblivion Wing number 1 connects. Oblivion Wing number 2 will not KO, but it will get my Xerneas deep into the red. I'm farming up with the Xerneas, going for the Moonblast. Moonblast will be lethal unless they commit the shield. Opponent is going to let the Yveltal go, and in the back, they have Groudon. I make it to the close combat, and at this point, all damage is helpful. Close combat will be no-shielded by the opponent, and Groudon is able to get the farm down. I'm now going to send in Giratina Origin, and I'm looking to farm up on energy. They easily have enough for the Precipice. I commit the shield, and the shield is rewarded as they full send. I'm farming up, and Ominous will not KO from here, so I decide to full send the Shadow Ball in case they try and call a bait, but they will commit the shield. After some more Shadow Claws, now I can safely go for an Ominous win. I commit the shield again, and again it is the Precipice Blades. That's absolutely massive. I'm farming up, going for the Ominous, and if they shield, I can combo play here. So Ominous win, we go into the Groudon, but the opponent anticipates the play, and they catch the Fire Punch onto the Zacian. That is extremely tough. I need to commit to a Precipice Blades. Opponent fires off their energy. They go for the close combat. That is going to get the KO, and I need back-to-back moves here on my Giratina. I'm farming up with the Giratina to the back-to-back Ominous wins. They're firing off the charge move. It is just going to be the Wild Charge. They are the double nuke Zacian. And at that point, after they debuff themselves, I can just farm down and leave with the Shadow Ball there. So I don't even need the back-to-back moves after all, as Shadow Ball will be enough to KO the Groudon. We see a positive lead in the next match, Dragon Tail Groudon into Rayquaza. This is one of the matchups for having Dragon Tail is so nice as Rayquaza is getting absolutely shredded. They go for the Breaking Swipe as soon as they get it, trying to lower the amount of damage that I'm doing. I can win the Zero Shield here by going for a Precipice Blades, but I'd rather save the energy as it's probably going to be more useful elsewhere. So instead, I'm just going to make a catch onto my Xerneas. My opponent sends in their own Xerneas, so this is looking like my opponent might be running my Legend team, in which case there's a Rhyperior in the back, which is a bit of a concern considering I have Giratina. My opponent gets the attack debuff from the Moonblast. This is now a 2 stages debuffed Moonblast. Moonblast connects, but I get the attack debuff back. I continue to farm up, I'm going for the Moonblast, and my opponent is going to fire off another charge move. They go for the close combat here. Close combat will KO, but the important thing is now they are debuffed. So I'm going to be thinking about this for a bit and then sending in the Giratina. Looking to farm up energy with the Giratina. I'm going to be shielding here as, of course, Moonblast would deal massive damage. Opponent is looking to switch into Rayquaza. I get the farm down, but they have reset the debuff on the Xerneas, and I am fully expecting it's going to be the Rhyperior in the back here. Opponent sends back in the Xerneas. I am not going to get to see what they have in back just yet. I'm going for the Ominous Wind. Ominous Wind will get the KO, and in the back, there it is. It's the Rhyperior. Rhyperiors love to shield the first move, so I go for the Ominous Wind bait. I continue to farm with the Giratina, and they're going to be firing off the Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe will not KO here. I'm going to let this through. I have a lot of energy on the Groudon, but I might need to Fire Punch bait in order to make it to a Precipice Blades. I go for the Shadow Ball. That connects. I switch into the Groudon, and I'm baiting here. I'm going for the Fire Punch bait. Fire Punch bait gets shielded. Groudon cannot make the Precipice Blades. I need to make the Shadow Ball. They throw a move. Oh my goodness. If I live the Mud Slap, I win this game because I can make the Shadow Ball. I'm only 2 off. I go for the Shadow Ball, but the game forces an overtap, and I lose the game. Hopping into the final match, and I'm looking for some redemption as I lead Groudon into Mewtwo. Mewtwo farming up to a potential Ice Beam. I'm not going to respect it here. Most are not running Ice Beam, and they do just go for the Psystrike. This can only be a Fire Punch here, but Fire Punch still does some pretty solid chip damage. My opponent is actually going to commit a shield. I continue to farm. Opponent ends up throwing on alignment there, and I have an interesting call to make. I decide to let this go and just take my shield advantage and send in Giratina. Giratina can get hit with a Shadow Ball, that's totally fine, but I'm basically just trusting in the fact that a lot of Mewtwo leads do not appreciate a backline Xerneas, so I'm just trusting in the fact that Xerneas can do well. In comes Dialga. I'm going to be firing off the Shadow Ball to put it into Moonblast range, and now it is Xerneas time, and they're staying in with the Dialga. I'm farming up energy with the Xerneas. Opponent is going to send in their own Xerneas, but they are so far behind in terms of energy. I fire off the Moonblast, I'm able to grab the shield, and I just continue to farm, go for the Moonblast, but I do lose the coin flip CMP tie. I decide to let this through. At this point, I know that I'm healthy enough that I should be able to win this game, even without shielding that charge move. The Dialga does have quite a bit of energy. I'm basically just going to make them beat me by farming me down, because they're in a range where I can just close combat and get the KO. They go for a close combat of their own. I just have to farm up to the back-to-back moves, and this game is done. Close combat number 1 is going to take care of the Xerneas. Back in comes the Dialga into loaded close combat number 2. Dialga's energy is meaningless as I still have the shield remaining, and we take the win. All in all, I think Dragon Tail Groudon is a really powerful core breaker in this current Open Master League meta. Regular Groudon, of course, is still very strong, but I think Dragon Tail is an interesting moveset to try, as a lot of cores, including ones that I myself have recommended, are very, very weak to it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.